Welcome to the evening show with Jackie Brambles. This is the part of the program where we get to indulge in a great conversation with one of our favourite artists of the 70s, 80s and 90s. And we complement the chat with some of their most significant musical memories. Tonight's special guest started out as a phenomenal, much-in-demand dancer before becoming a member of the band that had a hit with that track we just heard in 1982, I Can Make You Feel Good, which got to number 7 for Shalamar. And so we are pleased tonight to be able to welcome Jeffery Daniel to the show.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Where in the world are you speaking to us from?
I'm speaking from Lagos now, Lagos, Nigeria.
And is that home full-time for you?
Yeah, between here and Abuja. And then part-time Japan.
Part-time Japan. Wow, you're a well-traveled man.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't wish it on anyone else, but that's just how my life was cut out.
Okay. It's just how it's all worked out. And the remarkable story of we are now celebrating 40 years of Shalamar. You're on the 40th anniversary tour this year, right?
That's right. I mean, God, time does fly. And it's two occasions that we're celebrating. One is the 40th anniversary of the release of the Friends album, which that album really planted us into the UK in the biggest way. And also my debut performance on Top of the Pops of showing them the backslide, which Michael later named the Moonwalk.
Yes, now that is something that I want to get to the heart of. That Moonwalk and your working relationship with Michael Jackson. But before we look back, let's make sure we look to the near future, first of all, and let people know where and when they can see you performing, because the Shalamar 40th Anniversary Friends Tour kicks off in June, right?
That's right. It starts on June 1st, and it's going to go through the month of June, and then we're going to come back for a couple of legs again in August, and then again in November. We're going to do some festivals in August.
Some festivals in August as well. Fantastic. And do you work on new material as well, or is the focus more on the back catalogue?
It's more focused on the back catalogue because those are the songs. You know what's so funny? It's like I went to Paul McCartney concert in Osaka, Japan in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And as he's going from song to song, I'm like, my God, that's the soundtrack to my life. So for people to say that about Shalamar's music, that's like, oh my God, it's such an honor. We're so humbled.
Yes.
That's what they want to hear. They want to hear the hits. We did a new song called The Real Thing about 5 years ago, and it kind of got a lukewarm reception. Okay, something new from Shalamar, but bring us the hits.
Yeah, you're right, because they are the sort of the signposts of people's lives, and it means more than just a nice tune, right? It's bringing back memories of, important moments in people's lives.
Exactly. Who you were in love with, when you first met the person, what school you were at, when you're at home still living with your family, all these things, the dog that you had at the
time. That's right. Well, let's go back to your early days to figure out the path that led to Shalamar and all that came with it. Not sure what kind of dog you had, but I do know that you grew up in LA. So what kind of musical influences were around you when you were very, very young? Do you remember like the first record you ever would have bought for yourself?
Yeah, Jackie, that is an amazing question you're asking me, because growing up in Los Angeles and where I grew up, the area I wasn't in South Central. I didn't grow up there. I grew up in East LA, and it was multicultural. And so I was getting Mexican Spanish music. I was getting Ole Como Va, and I was getting all these Spanish songs. I was getting rock music. Then the music of Motown was coming through, and of course James Brown, and we're all practicing the James Brown splits and trying to dance like James Brown. And so,
of course,
I was getting such an eclectic assortment of music at the time.
1, 2, 3, 4. Get up, get on up. Come on, stay on the scene.
James Brown, Get Up, Sex Machine, a club classic for some of us back in the day, am I right? And James Brown, an early influence with his dance moves on tonight's very special guest, Jeffery Daniel of Shalamar. So, growing up, did you have sort of a musical hero that you thought, you know what, that's what I want to be like, whether that was in terms of dancing or music? Was there somebody whose career you thought, yeah, that's where I'm going?
Oddly enough, it wasn't musical heroes. It was movie heroes like Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy, and people like Danny Kaye, because I like the comedic stuff. I just like the fun stuff they're doing. And they did a bit of dancing and singing along with it. But the comedy, Jerry Lewis, oh God, he's one of my favorites.
I loved him as a kid. I loved his movies as a kid. I just thought it was hilarious. Him and Dean Martin.
Yeah, okay. Who's that? Who you did a Woozy? Who you did a That Jerry Lewis voice.
That was so good.
Yeah, I love them. So that's what I was aspiring to be. And of course, the music was there because my mother played piano in church every Sunday. So I was in the choir and I was singing songs like How Great Thou Art. I was lead singing those type of songs. So the singing was there, but I loved the really comedic, humorous Lewis, all that. That's what really turned me on.
How about, so when did sort of pop music, soul music, R&B first kind of come on, it become important to you? You're sort of getting into teenagerhood, maybe a young adult. Who would you be influenced by then at that point?
As I said earlier, I had such a multicultural upbringing. The things that really sparked me off around that time would have been Sly and the Family Stone.
Oh, great.
The music was so unique and so, funky. I would say the earlier Isley Brothers. Of course, James Brown. We have to say James Brown across the board. James Brown.
Yeah, yes.
Then later came Marvin Gaye with What's Going On. But then Marvin Gaye's earlier hits with Tammy Terrell and those things. The sound of Motown just permeated through our neighborhood. I mean, it's just everywhere you went, you heard the sounds of Motown. The Four Tops and the Temptations. And I was trying to be Eddie Kendricks with the high falsetto voice, and that's, okay, I could say vocally, that's why I was patterning myself after Eddie Kendricks and Smokey Robinson, because they had that sweet, nice falsetto voice. So I was patterning myself after that.
I never met a girl who makes me feel the way that you do. 'Cause here I come.
The Temptations with Get Ready, featuring the sweet falsetto voice of Eddie Kendricks on lead vocals. A big influence on tonight's special guest, Jeffery Daniel of Shalamar, who would have just been hitting his teens growing up in East LA when that was a hit in 1969. And we'll be back to continue this great conversation with Jeffery to find out how Soul Train led to Shalamar next. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where tonight we are having a great conversation with Jeffery Daniel of Shalamar. Jeffery is beaming in from his home in Nigeria, but will be touching down on UK shores in June for the 40th anniversary Friends Tour with Shalamar. Before the break, Jeffery, we were talking about your adolescence as you grew up in the multicultural neighborhoods of East LA. So let's go on to the next chapters of adulthood and the start of your career. How did Shalamar come about? So it was yourself, it was Howard Hewitt and Jody Watley originally in the lineup. Did you sort of meet as dancers when you were, working professional dancers? Is that how it happened?
You got to remove the word professional and just say dancers.
Oh, okay. No one was paying you.
We were dancing on Soul Train, but they didn't pay us, but we were being seen by the nation. Jody was my dance partner on Soul Train. Howard wasn't a dancer. He came from Ohio, and Howard came out to be a singer. So he was always a singer. In fact,
right.
He used to loaf dancing sometimes, the choreography, but he had to get into it. But now he's having fun with it. But Jody and I were dancing on Soul Train, and we became one of the most prominent couples on the show. So when Don Cornelius and Dick Griffey started Soul Train Records, they had their eye on me. And they first put me in the group called the Soul Train Gang, but that didn't last long. And they said, Jeffery, we're going to build something else around you. And that was Shalamar. And it was Jody Watley, myself, and Gary Mumford.
All right, okay.
Then Jody Watley and myself and Gerald Brown, who sang the lead on Take That to the Bank. And then finally, Howard came in 1979, and that became the classic Shalamar with Howard Hewitt, Jody Watley, and Jeffery Daniel. Do
you remember the other sort of bands who were, in the same, swimming in the same pool as you at that time? Who was around that were your contemporaries?
Boy George would come to our shows. George Michael was there hanging out. In fact, I used to go to the Camden Palace on Thursday nights, and then Andrew Ridgely would be driving me and George Michael home. And George would be knocked out drunk in the back seat, And let me see. Back then, when Steve Strange hosted the Camden Palace, everyone was there.
Oh,
the
yes.
Bells, yeah. The Bell Stars, Echo and the Bunnymen, Marilyn, Hazy Fantasy, Kate and Marilyn, and everyone was hanging out at the time. It was a lot of fun. It was so much fun back then.
Devenir un carré.
Fade to Grey by Visage, featuring the lead vocals of Steve Strange, who hosted many legendary nights at the Blitz Club with friend of the show Rusty Egan, enjoyed by the brightest and the best of the 80s icons, including tonight's special guest Jeffery Daniel of Shalamar. So Jeffrey, you guys were having hits on both sides of the Atlantic. How did you compare the success of Shalamar at home in the States against what you were experiencing here in the UK?
We were big in the U.S. because they watched us grow up on Soul Train into Shalamar. So we were big. We sold out the Greek theater and things like that. But I can say across the board, the UK took it to another level. And I think it's because I think we have evergreen hits thanks to our producer, Leon Silvers. I mean, we always have to give praise to him. He did such an amazing job. Then I think my dancing introduction to the street dance movement came partial in part along with the Shalamar presentation. So I think that together gave it such a big influence. And that's when there was a shift happening.
Yeah.
The music was going to more synthesized, away from just the guitar and drum and bass. It was getting more synthesized, driven. I was hanging out with Thomas Dolby and Tom Bailey of the Thompson Twins and Alison Moyet of Yazoo,
Yes.
things like that, because they're really in that synth movement. And that's when you saw the shift in Shalamar's music too, with Dead Giveaway, the Now Club, and songs like that. And
do you remember sort of the first time as the three of you as a trio where you kind of thought, oh, we are just about to break through. This is going to happen? When it really
happened, it was in '82. We were already touring for a while. But when we sold out every show across the UK. And at the end of the tour, they added on the Wembley Arena and it sold out immediately. When we walked out on that stage and looked at that crowd, oh my God, I had goosebumps and we were almost in tears. It was just so gratifying. And at that moment, I felt, wow, I think we've done something here.
When you love someone, it's natural, not demanding.
Shalamar with A Night to Remember got to number 5 in 1982, one of 11 top 40 hits they had in the UK charts. Jeffery Daniel of Shalamar is our special guest, and it's time to talk about the hot button topic of exactly who invented the moonwalk. You, on Top of the Pops, or Michael Jackson? Because it's not just the 40th anniversary tour, it's also that you're celebrating. It is that 40 years since that amazing performance on Top of the Pops. It was A Night to Remember, wasn't it, that was in the charts? You guys performed and you did this move, which we now know has been called the moonwalk, but it was like a backslide, right, that you did.
Exactly.
That nobody had ever seen before. Do you remember what the reaction was like to that?
I came over for first for I Can Make You Feel Good.
Right.
But it dropped in the chart. So I couldn't go on Top of the Pops because if your song drops that week, you can't go on the TV show.
Right.
So they flew back again for A Night to Remember. And when I first got there, the record company was calling up like Smash Hits, Record Mirror, Melody Maker, these things. Hey, Jeffery Daniels from Shalamar's over here. You guys want an interview? Actually, I'm taking the cat for a walk right now. So we weren't interested. When I did that performance on Top of the Pops and we flew to Amsterdam the next day to continue promoting the song, he came to my hotel banging on the door. Jeffrey. I'm like, what's going on? He said, we got to get back to the UK. Everyone's looking for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, that performance you did last night, everyone now wants to interview you. Everyone's looking for you. And so that really was the catalyst for us being accepted in the UK on such a major scale.
And did you meet with Michael Jackson back then? I know you worked with him a few years after that, but at that time, and how did you feel when everyone sort of got hysterical about this new move called the moonwalk, a couple of years after you'd already done it, and he kind of got the credit for your move?
No, I was proud, because he's just another dance brother. I have many dance brothers in the Lockers and the Electric Boogaloos, Casper and Cooley, blah, 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 Tyrone Proctor. So when any of us go out and do something good, because we all share and borrow from each other, I don't take 100% credit in creating and inventing everything, because it's a matter of us sharing with each other. But I met Michael in 79 officially.
Right.
And then we're working together with him since 1980. And then it took him to 83 to finally do the step on stage with the Motown 25th. So I was in the audience. I was sitting watching. Here's the funny thing about it. He's doing Billie Jean. He gets to the breakdown. He does the backslide and he spins. When he did that, the whole crowd went to their feet. But Jody was there with Dick Griffey. Some other people were there, and they looked at me. Their heads looked at me like,
Yeah.
Jeffrey, did you see that? And then everyone else was going, yay! But it was great. It was amazing. And I was very proud that, that he was out there doing his thing.
She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene. I said,
It's been 40 years since Michael Jackson first moonwalked on TV to Billie Jean during the Motown 25 celebrations. But it's been 41 years since Jeffrey Daniel first performed that move on Top of the Pops as part of his band Shalamar. And we will be back with more of that story and some great conversation from Jeffrey next. Welcome back to the evening show with Jackie Brambles, where it's just you, me, and Jeffrey Daniel of Shalamar, cozying on in for a great conversation and a meander through Jeffrey's meaningful musical memories. We were speaking before the break, Jeffrey, about Michael Jackson being credited for the dance move called the Moonwalk a full year after you did that move on Top of the Pops with Shalamar. But you very generously are happy to share the credit, and you had a very long working relationship with Michael Jackson, didn't you?
Yeah, I snuck in the Beat It video. So I wasn't choreographer yet, but I'm in the Beat It video in the walking scenes, lifting the door, because I couldn't stick around for the dance scenes to learn, because Shalamar was recording on the other side of town. So I was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm in Beat It, but it wasn't until the Bad album, and Michael asked me to be choreographer. So we flew to New York and we did the Bad video, came back to LA and we did the Smooth Criminal video. And I worked with Michael for like 20 years. I was with him in Brazil for the They Don't Really Care About Us video in 96.
Oh, wow.
And the Ghost short movie called Ghost. I'm creative consultant on there too. And the last job I officially had in America was working for MJJ Music, Michael Jackson's record label. He appointed me as an A&R consultant on his label, MJJ Music.
Oh my goodness! So that was a very long relationship that you had with him, endured over a couple of decades.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Michael was the most amazing person I've ever met in my life. I know it sounds cliche because he's like a kind of a Mickey Mouse character and this and that and that, but it's just the way he is. He's just a very lovely person, and it was such an honor to work with the greatest entertainer who's ever graced the stage.
I think it's interesting for us, as just fans, to learn that, I mean, of course, it makes sense. He doesn't make up every move that he's got. He surrounds himself with the best of the best of the best. And you are one of those in that world of choreography and making astonishing videos. And so it makes sense that he's got this team around him, but he just did seem to have a signature style. Was that him borrowing from the choreographers around him, or were you sort of creating moves that lent themselves to his signature style? How does it work?
It's a combination of both, because I can give him something, and Michael is a sponge. He absorbs everything. And so I can give him something and he takes it and then he works on it on his own. And he puts himself into it and he adds things to it. Like when we did the Bad video, there's your core choreography that we're doing.
Yeah.
So we know what the steps are. But in between the choreography, this guy is breaking away, spinning, going, oh, and then jumping back into it again. And we didn't plan that. And I'm like, wow. And even I'm excited because I'm seeing how he's improvising within the choreography. That's Michael. The grabbing the crotch, that's Michael. Don't blame it on me. but he adds his own Michael thing into it, as well as what we're giving him. And he was learning from the greats, from Bob Fosse, from Sammy Davis Jr., from Freddie Mercury, Elvis Presley, he was learning from everybody.
A little less conversation, a little more action. A little less fight, a little more spark Shut your mouth and open up your heart, baby, satisfy me.
Elvis apparently influenced the dance moves of Michael Jackson, according to Michael's longtime choreographer and collaborator Jeffrey Daniel, our special guest tonight. Headed back to the UK soon with his band Shalamar. You're about to head out on a 40th anniversary tour here in June, but back in 1983, when Shalamar was still riding incredibly high, suddenly the band fell apart.
I didn't just leave Shalamar, I left America. So because
Right.
when I left Shalamar, actually, I was in the UK filming a movie with Paul McCartney. It's called Give My Regards to Broad Street.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I was in the UK filming when I got the news that things weren't going well. It was actually between our record company and us. It wasn't like I hate Howard and Jody. It was the record company that was the problem. And so
All right.
so we broke. I was so disappointed with everything. I just didn't go back home. I just stayed in the UK. I think it was the biggest pout I ever had in my life. The biggest sulk. It lasted for about 5 years. I just did not go back to America. I stayed in the UK. Okay, so now I'm in the UK, and I'm getting calls about somebody putting on a play or something. I'm like, a play? And they said they're rehearsing at a church, and I thought it was a church play. And I'm like, well, I got other things in my mind right now. And like, I was literally hanging up in their face.
Yeah.
A friend of mine named Void saw me in a club one night. She said, Jeffrey, you know the really useful company trying to get a hold of you. Do you know? I said, who? Jeffrey, do you know who Andrew Lloyd Webber is? I go, no. She goes, okay. Do you know Cats? I go, yeah. She said, do you know Evita? I said, yeah, I saw that in LA. She said, that's the guy that's calling you. I'm like, oh my God. So I went and auditioned for him. It was the funniest audition because Trevor Nunn, who's the leader of the Shakespearean Company at the time, he has this goatee and that.
Yeah.
He's standing there. All they wanted to know if I could stand up on skates. If I couldn't, they were still going to train me because they knew I could dance, they knew I can sing, and they wanted me for the part of Electra because it was this very
Right.
futuristic Train of the Future. It had this funky.
Is it Starlight Express?
Yeah, Starlight Express, exactly. And so they wanted me for Electra. They wanted me, no one else, because of my style, my hairstyle. That is kind of like an androgynous looking thing. Because AC power, so it's like this double entendre is left open. So anyway, so all they wanted to know is if I could stand up on skates. They didn't know that I grew up skating, dancing on skates.
Did you blow them away?
I was doing splits. I was doing flips. Trevor Nunn was laughing, so I took off my skates and was leaving. He goes, no. He said, Jeffrey, we just wanted to know if you can stand up. We weren't expecting all that. They had never seen anyone skate like that before.
Oh my goodness. How amazing.
It was almost akin to like seeing the backslide for the first time. They'd never seen no one do stuff like that on skates before.
I bet they hadn't. Just backtracking slightly to where you'd mentioned Give My Regards to Broad Street. You performed to the Wings song Silly Love Songs in that, didn't you? As a marionette?
Exactly. And they had members of Toto, the band Toto. They had Louis Johnson of the Brothers Johnson on bass. They all had on this makeup, this white face makeup and that. And that was an amazing experience. Yeah, so it's the Silly Love Songs, and I'm doing the dance to it.
You think that people would have had enough of silly love songs? What's wrong with that?
I do encourage you to go and find that video, Silly Love Songs, from Give My Regards to Broad Street. You'll find it online. It is so bizarre. And Paul McCartney looks positively bonkers, but Jeffrey Daniel is by far the coolest dude on the set doing his signature moves. Well, listen, we're nearly out of time, but we're not going to let you go, Jeffrey, until we get the final choice of track is going to come from you tonight. It's impossible, I know, to pick a favorite song of all time. But if I asked you to pick a particular song that you find yourself revisiting fairly often because you know it will deliver what you're in need of, whether that's being energized or inspired or comforted.
Cameo. Let's go to Cameo's Word Up.
Oh, what a cracker.
Because I want people, I want them to feel good and dance. And that's why I'm selecting these songs. If I was driving my car, I'd have to pull the car over and get out and dance.
Do you get a lot of strange looks when you're doing that?
Back in the days when those songs were out, I was at the gas station pumping gas, and it came on the radio. We'd turn up the radio, and the gas station would turn into a party. I am not joking. I'm serious.
Word Up, number 3 in 1986. And the final choice of track tonight from Jeffrey Daniel of Shalamar. It's been such a pleasure talking to you with you. I feel energized just for having the conversation, Jeffrey, and we really can't wait for you to come to the UK. And I think you're kicking off, let me see, you're kicking off in June in Liverpool, I think, on June 1st.
First is Liverpool, and the second, so quick, is going to be the London Palladium. So I just want to say to everybody, come and enjoy the Shalamar's hits, our legacies. It's the 40th anniversary of the Friends album and the 40th anniversary of me doing my dance performance on Top of the Pops to A Night to Remember.
Oh, Jeffrey, what a treat it's been. Thank you so much, my friend. All the very best.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey Daniel of Shalamar, and a first tonight to have our guest beaming in from Nigeria.